Stories like Dylan's are becoming far too common. Many people find it laughable that a man is at the centre of abuse, but what we need to understand is that 16% of men in the UK alone are coming forward to tell their stories of abuse. So until we can fully understand what's going on and figure out a way to put a stop to this and figure out a way to make men more comfortable with telling their stories, then I'm afraid stories like Dylan's are going to become all the more common. Hi Anthony, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It's always good to have a male perspective on abuse. Anthony, can you tell me, how did this abuse start?
I was married to a man who I thought was a loving, caring, sensitive person until about 5 months into the marriage. He'd always been a funny, witty person who had a Cockney charm and accent that would make anyone melt. We'd been dating for about 2 years when he asked me to marry him. I couldn't find a reason not to marry him. He was perfect in my eyes. And he always seemed like everything I could have ever wanted in a partner. I never would have imagined in my wildest nightmares that this man, the one I loved and trusted, had such evil inside of him.
Can you tell me what reasons she gave you for doing this? What reasons, what excuses were there?
At first it wasn't with me. It'd be over something minor, something like a gas nozzle at a gas station not going on right, or tearing off a piece of paper towel that didn't tear off the way it should have. He also started drinking heavy. He always had 2 beers after work, but now he's drinking a 6-pack a day, sometimes more. I didn't say anything at first, until he started making joking insults at me. It was little things at first, like I would wind him up and never listen. And then as the beatings got worse, the excuses just kept following and following. Dinner wasn't ready on time. I was looking at other men on TV. I was talking about it behind his back, and that's why he couldn't make any friends. I thought it was supposed to be a super couple, you know? Like the happiest couple on earth. And then when the mood swings started, I was shocked. He started becoming irritable over anything and everything.
This must be very, very hard on you, and we commend you so much for your bravery. But can you give us some examples of what he did to you? What happened to you in that house?
I thought to myself at first that he had some problems, but I wasn't going to push him, and that he would talk to me when he was ready. It never happened. He started drinking more and more till he'd pass out, but not before saying incredibly hurtful things, like call me a fairy or a fag, or kicking our furniture around. I was getting extremely nervous when he was around, wondering what had set him off next. I told him that I needed to get away because I just wasn't going to be treated and talked to like a piece of shit. That's when he walked over and punched me. He punched me so hard I flew into the wall. He said that I wasn't going anywhere. If I tried to leave again, it would be the last thing I ever did. He said if I tried to talk to anyone about anything, about this, he would kill me. And he would have a gun to my head. It was loaded. He could kill me before the police got there. I was stupid enough to believe he'd actually do it.
Anthony, what were your feelings when this was happening? How did you feel about this?
I felt terrible. Just a mess of emotions. Because I didn't know what to do. I lived like this for the next 2 years, day in, day out. I just took it. I can't even tell you the feelings I had. Part of me just wanted to run away, get away as quickly as I could. And the other half, I just wanted to help him, change him somehow. I wish I could tell you how I felt, but it's impossible for me. I was just a mess.
How did you get away from this? How did you pull yourself out of this situation?
The last straw came one day when I came home from work, just to find drinking as usual. But this time it was neat vodka. I wanted to stay out of his way, but that would just set him off, and he'd slap me, or the pushing would start, or the yelling. This particular day I went to the kitchen. I went to feed the dog. A little poodle he'd gotten when we were dating. Even he would hide from my husband. The fight started all the time now. Anyway, the poodle legged it. He tried to grab it as it was running and hurt it. I lost it. I just told him he was a horrible human being and didn't deserve to breathe. If he hurts his own dog, that's when he lost it. I mean, he totally exploded. Red face, dark eyes. Kind of blew at me. Started punching and kicking me. I don't remember much. Except when I tried to get air into my lungs. It's like my chest would just rattle. I thought, death rattle. I knew I was dying. I was bleeding from my nose and my mouth. And the finger on my left side was all twisted, in an unnatural position. The pain was unbearable. I can just remember when he pulled me up by my hair and screamed in my face. I also remember him punching me on my side, like it was the 100th time, and one more kick on my back. Then it stopped. I woke up 2 weeks later in hospital with my mum by my side. She started crying and sobbing, and I knew. I knew I must look a mess. She just told me that they had to restart my heart. She thought she'd lost me. I got out of hospital 3 days for my husband's court case. I made damn well sure I was there to testify. I had my counsellors, my friends, my family surrounding me. And when I got up and stood and testified, I finally felt 10 feet tall. My husband got 6 years in prison, and he could be out in 3. So even though it's not 10 years or 20, I'm still feeling like the king of the world. No one is ever going to make me feel like that again.
Anthony, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. We know a lot of men feel ashamed or unable to come to the camera with their stories, but it's people like you who help other people get brave. Anthony's story is a heartbreaking one. It's also one that's becoming all too common. UK statistics tell us 9% of gay or bisexual men in the UK are victims of abuse in their own homes. Now this may seem like a really small figure, but if we think about it, 1.5 to 2 million people who are gay or bisexual who are living in the UK today, that's 200,000 of those people who are in their own homes being abused by their partners. Now it's a horrible lesson to learn, but stories like Anthony's and the success he has at the end is a brilliant way of conveying how people can win. Hi Sharon, it's a pleasure to meet you and thank you so much for being here today to share your story with us. Can you tell us a little bit about how the abuse started?
I first met Jacob when I was 18. just before going to college, but we lost touch and only began our relationship the following year. It was my first ever relationship, and I soon grew really close to him and we quickly fell in love. We spent all of our spare time together, but we missed each other so much when I had to go back for the next term. He attended a different college. He was actually studying psychology, which I always thought was a little ironic. After 2 years, we moved in together, and for the first year, it was a dream come true. The first time he hit me was like the biggest shock. I've never seen him raise his hand to anyone, let alone me. He used to tell me never to make him angry, but I thought he was joking, because whenever he said it, he never sounded sinister or angry. He would just say it in a really matter-of-fact way.
Did he give you any reason for why this abuse started? Any explanation at all?
We would have these lovely periods of calm, followed by terrible violence and him blaming me for pushing him to do it, or him saying that that was all I was good for, or that I needed to be punished. And I always wanted a reaction, don't I? He always used those excuses, and I still think that he believes them to this day. It would be hard hitting to the head, hitting and slapping my back, putting a knife to my throat, constantly accusing me of cheating on him and disapproving of certain outfits that I wore. He always thought he was allowed to treat me this way. He always trying to convince me that it was all my fault, and I'd rush to apologise so we didn't have to do this anymore. I was always the one to make things right because I wanted us to be okay and happy.
Sharon, this would be very, very hard to do, but I was wondering, could you tell us about the kinds of abuse that went on at home, what he was doing to you?
He would hit me hard, and most of the time I would apologise to him because he made me feel like I had started the argument with my loud mouth. And once he finished it with his fists, he would want sex. Something started to change when I had to go to the hospital after he beat me over the head so hard that my eyes bled. I lost some sight in my right eye. From that day, a part of me started to wish him dead. And I wished someone would just kill him for me because, again, he always said it was all my fault and my treatment of him pushed him to it.
This is the most important thing, I feel. How do you feel? How did you feel when you were living in that hell?
He always told me I was far too uppity when I spoke, like I was trying to make him agree with everything I said. I told him that he had anger problems and that normal people didn't treat others like this, and he would get really mad all over again and say that I wanted things my way. I always had to twist things so that he was the bad guy and that I was the manipulative one, but all the while it was him doing it to me.
Sharon, you're an inspiration to women. Can you tell us, what was it like the day you escaped? How did you escape? What led to it?
We had a terrible argument 6 months ago, and we were arguing about his dad and how he used to abuse Jacob, and I stupidly shouted at him, "I blame your dad for the way you treat me." He was a bomb, and I just armed him. He headbutted me several times and just kept beating me over the head, and when he got breathless, he would force me to clean up the blood because he didn't like the look of it. And I tried desperately to just pour the blood away. He started beating me in the kitchen where I was cleaning, and as more blood spilt out, he just carried on, and I thought, this is it, I'm going to die now. And something snapped, and I pushed him away harder than I've ever pushed anything, and ran out of the house, and I had nothing. No money, no car. But luckily I had my mobile phone, and one tearful call to my friend, and 10 minutes later she drove up to meet me about 4 miles away, and I was still jogging. My friend dropped me off outside Women's Aid because we were both really afraid of Jacob and that he'd come after me. He'd already rang me a few times and I was a mess. I didn't even dare go to the hospital. Ringing that buzzer was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but now I feel brand new. My head is clear and I have friends and staff around me to support me. No looking back now.